Okay, now we move on to. Thank you very much, guys. Now we move on to our final panel session of the day and round everything up looking into AI and the future of programmatic. For this session, I'd like to invite Chloe Nicholls, already here. Hi, Chloe, ready and waiting. Chloe's head of ad tech for IAB UK.
Struggling furniture.
You could even try putting that on your lap.
Do you want to move it a bit closer?
Yeah. Testing.
Does it sound all right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Put it down.
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you very much for all staying with us. I think this is one of the most exciting topics of today. And just to set things up, I think we all know AI is not a completely new area. I think there has been a buzz around it with increased utilization and the way in which we're now using it. It's existed in programmatic. We've heard of machine learning algorithms. We've spoken about them for years. But I think the future and how we will continue to use programmatic and AI is going to change. So today I've got a host of expert panelists to take you through what we expect to see, some of the challenges we need to overcome. But to start things off, I just want to clarify on your definition of AI and programmatic. What are its current use cases? Maybe we'll start with Gemma.
Okay, I'm going to have to resist singing Celine Dion, sorry, because somebody's given me a handheld mic. From an IAS perspective, to your point, generative AI has brought it very much back into the mainstream, but for us, programmatic and AI are very much intertwined, and it's all about facilitating the processing of large data sets to empower both publishers and advertisers to drive improved effectiveness of their campaigns, whether that be via supply path, quality path, transparency and optimization, whether it be via in-view, fraud, misalignment, whether it be via contextual relevancy. All this fine-tuning ultimately lends itself to driving better results and ultimately has a significant impact on your bottom line. So that's definitely where we use AI in its current form.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Shreeni from Quantcast. I'm an engineer by training, and I've been at Quantcast for 6 years. And we have seen AI used across the spectrum when it comes to programmatic, right from bidding to kind of planning audiences to reporting, and then to technical details like QPS optimizations and supply path optimization and so on. So none of this is new. What has happened in the last maybe 12 months or so is the explosion on generative AI, especially how it affects text. And this is becoming relevant because of the increased focus on contextual targeting as we move from a cookied world to a cookieless world and so on. And there are a few other kind of interesting use cases that are coming up because of our ability to now create generative text. So all of that's exciting. So yeah, that's where we find ourselves.
Great, thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Cecile Blanc, and I look after Copilot, which is the AI platform of Group M Nexus. Our main use case, obviously, is buy side. So where we get excited is when we can unlock better performance for our clients. And I think it was touched on in the previous panel. And thank you, Jason, for the shout out. Performance is not just like better on cost, it's also better quality, and quality means something different for each client. So that custom aspect of AI is something that for programmatic buying is very exciting.
Great.
My name is Desiree. I work at Teads, and I actually look after our buy-side platform, so Teads Ad Manager. We are full end-to-end, so supply side and demand side, really. And for us, it's about maximizing the value of each ad opportunity, essentially, and that's across media effectiveness and media efficiency. So looking at, from a media effectiveness perspective, leveraging AI to predict better on viewability, completion rates, time spent, all the way through the funnel, really. And then on the efficiency piece, it's really about not just driving efficiency and cost, but how each impression, we don't create wastage. So can we detect a broken creative, for example, and not serve an ad in that situation? So that's how we leverage it.
Brilliant. And I think obviously at my role at IAB, I think I get to sometimes ask the difficult questions. Oh, I think I should be okay with this, but thank you. And every area where we see this massive growth, last week I was talking about fighting fraud in CTV. When we have these areas of growth, of a huge amount of change, being an agile industry, there is also a concern about what are some of the challenges in these spaces. And specifically for AI, what do you see as some of the challenges? And without expecting you to have all the answers, how can we navigate to avoid these from growing?
Want me to go first?
You've got the mic. So.
Well, I think the biggest challenge we face is the AI technologies that all of the ad tech partners are setting up needs to be easier to understand, easier to reason about, and we should be able to explain how it adds value to our clients. What is I think it's difficult to do. It's tricky. We got to do it because if not, as the amount of technology used increases across the spectrum, and it's being deployed at, say, multiple hops along the decision making, then you're going to end up having just way too much complexity that's not explained, and then you're going to end up having either unexpected results, or you're going to have a lot of manual effort going into troubleshooting and so on. So I think one of the most important aspects of building any new AI is to make it easier to understand, easier to reason about, have good enough tools to report about the various metrics, and be able to measure how successful it is. And in some cases, even build like a kill switch, because you need to be able to go in and say, hey, look, for me to be able to effectively run this particular thing, I want to kill this so that I can understand this better. So
override, yeah, great. Cecile?
That's a very interesting point, actually, about making sure that people can understand what AI did. I think Programmatic has a history also, and we want to make sure that we learn from that history, and that from the get-go, AI implementation is done in a way that adds insights and doesn't create smoke and mirrors. So at Copilot, we're also quite passionate about finding ways to visualize what the AI is doing, so that it's not a black box, but you can actually learn from what the AI is doing. And I saw actually an article recently about a study that was done showing that people trust the AI recommendations more when they don't understand the process behind it. And that, I find it very scary. And I hope that we actually don't encourage that, and we educate our people, our clients, to make sure that they embed AI into their ways of working, and that they don't buy into smoke and mirrors. In terms of challenges, I wanted to add also that for lots of good reasons, Programmatic has implemented more restrictions on keywords targeting, on audience targeting, on frequency cap, and all of these are good things. But AI thrives when it has a big playing field to learn from. So finding that balance between necessary restrictions and giving the AI enough room to learn and find those incremental pockets of performance is a challenge that we all need to tackle.
Yeah, I think the overarching challenge can be that you need to have accuracy in your prediction and how you scale that. So there's talk about lookalikes earlier, and also actually being able to measure that it does work, scaling that does work. I wanted to comment on what you were saying around adding data. It's true, like we always give a recommendation to have one strategy that is ultra targeted, and the other one that leverages the AI to find the relevant audiences to drive that performance.
Balancing the two, kind of.
Yeah.
I still want to sing Celine Dion, sorry. But I would like to throw a little bit of a different lens onto this conversation. So a little bit of context on me. So I was actually at Group M for 15 years pre-IS. And the reason that I moved to IS was because I felt this really pressing need to like push brand suitability up the agenda. And it does really concern me with any new advancing tech that that's only going to bring with it risk from a brand suitability perspective. We've been doing a lot of work pushing this through a DEI lens as well. So you mentioned keywords, Cecile, and we're very much about the fact that keywords are a blunt tool that just kind of sidesteps really tricky and nuanced and sensitive subject matters, whereas actually the adoption of natural language processing, which reads the page in full, means that actually you're, in simple terms, blocking all the bad stuff and all the harmful content, but actually like passing all the great, informed, amazing content that absolutely should not be blocked. That not only is the harmful stuff, obviously misalignment is a risk in terms of client reputation, but you're actually blocking scales, that's harming publishers. So I'm really, really keen in terms of AI, in terms of like pushing that up the agenda and making sure that collectively we do the right thing across the whole digital ecosystem to protect both sides.
Definitely. Some very useful considerations as well there, I think, when we're looking forward. But speaking of looking forward, what do you see, maybe we can start with Gemma, because you have the mic, as the opportunities and the kind of innovation which AI can engage into the industry?
I think for me, again, sort of in the same vein. So I started off in print. So that was like 20 years ago, and then transitioned into programmatic. So I've kind of seen like both sides of the coin, as it were. And so for me, protecting quality journalism and making sure that we fund quality journalism is of particular importance, whether that be via supply quality path optimization and making sure that we're driving, that we're bringing publishers closer to ad spend is obviously really important. And then again, in the same vein, making sure that we actually move away from legacy tactics to avoid harmful content and actually start unlocking scale on premium publishers, and ultimately, you know, driving scale with confidence would be what I see as the big opportunity.
Great, thank you.
I think the biggest opportunity is that as we've moved from traditional media to programmatic, I think one of the biggest challenges has been that we've gotten marketers to spend too much time trying to solve technical problems rather than focusing on the core challenges that they are really, really good at, which is media planning, which is targeting, and then which is reporting, and then going through that kind of feedback loop, along with focusing on the message. And I think that the biggest opportunity AI brings along is a little bit of the answer to the problem that Cecile was putting up, which is that the marketer should be able to go in and present their constraints and then let the machine do the right job, and the machine should respond, but being able to do it in a way that's measurable and in a way that we can say that it's done it well and correctly. And I think a lot of the focus at Quantcast, for instance, is in kind of getting that loop right and trying to get a system that marketers can use and focus on those aspects of their job, and not so much on trying to, essentially be an extension of an engineer. That's not what they should be doing. They should be focusing on the really cool things that they can do to improve brands' growth. So yeah, that's where I think the biggest potential lies.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So Copilot is called Copilot because we strongly believe that a human should be in charge, enabled by the machine, but not giving the keys to the machine for AI to do God knows what. So the way Copilot works is that we sit on top of buying platforms and we completely play by the rules. So whatever the human has set as limitations in the DSP, again, we talked about keyword targeting and other constraints, Copilot respects that, but it will look to find incremental pockets of performance within that playing field. And I was talking about our insights, so our data visualizations before. When we share that with clients, it becomes so clear what the value of a technology like Copilot is, especially when we show the amount of changes that were made to a campaign, like throughout the campaigns, and you see sometimes 400, 800 changes. a trader, even a very dedicated one, even not taking any weekends, not sleeping, only, looking after your campaign, couldn't possibly do that. It makes no sense. So we want the AI to do the heavy lifting so that humans can be more strategic and more creative. And I think that's where the main opportunity, the most exciting one is.
Yeah, totally agree. AI allows a trader to be a little bit more free in terms of having to manually optimize. And because we're end to end, what we've been able to do is actually create bidding models that are on guaranteed outcomes. So if you can just buy and bid on a guarantee, then you are spending more time looking at insights, looking at what creative worked, spending your time storytelling as opposed to just optimizing every impression.
No, that's a really good point. And I think gone are the days where there's a manual lever or button we need to be doing to demonstrate the kind of work that's being added. But I also then, in a similar thread, I know earlier panels have spoken, what do you see as a future in the next 6 to 12 months? And possibly that's a bit short-sighted. So I was going to ask you today, what do you see as the future of AI in the use case of programmatic in maybe both a 12-month plan and then a beyond up to 5 years expansion without being too long term? Do you want to start, Shreeni?
I'm happy to. 800 transactions sounds like me on my stock brokerage account losing money. So, it struck a chord with some people, I hear. In terms of the next 6 to 12 months, I think the most obvious opportunity is going to be on moving away from third-party cookies to cookieless, and it's going to bring a new set of challenges in AI. And I think it is also going to coincide with the increased power of generative AI, especially on the text side. I think it's going to support a lot of contextual targeting, just what we are finding at Quantcast. Like, when we test out, generative AI using LLM models, we're seeing that it has the potential to increase our ability to understand context and understand content. And I think that's going to be important for the cookieless transformation. And I think the next big, near-term opportunity is going to be on CTV, especially towards how do you bring CTV together with kind of measurement. For instance, how do you see brand lift happening as a consequence of CTV budgets? And especially, we talked about the huge growth opportunity in CTV in the first session. I think for us at Quantcast, we've been kind of thinking about how do we then marry that with the measurement side. We've been building an AI-driven real-time brand lift measurement product. And so for us, these kind of opportunities are very interesting. So yeah, cookieless CTV and kind of AI is going to play a massive role in the growth of both of those spaces in our head.
Yeah.
I don't want to make a prediction, but perhaps like wishful, my wish list would be for clients to really embrace AI for what is important to them. So technology is wonderful, but at the end of the day, it's what problems are we tackling? And that's where we get quite passionate. So Jason touched on the optimization to offline sales and what it can unlock. That to me is really exciting. We also had a case recently where Wavemaker worked with Kantar to build a cost per impact metric for a client specifically. So their quality of what impact is, and using that, Copilot was able to optimize across a dozen video formats across 2 buying platforms. And that is true innovation, because it's innovation that serves the client as opposed to innovation for the sake of innovation. So hopefully over the next year and 5 years, to your point, Chloe, it's more education so that really our clients can make the most of AI for what they need.
Okay, I think exciting and near future is, and it's been touched on, generative AI. Our teams have had like a big hackathon, our innovation teams, and they've looked at, okay, can we look at maybe building a creative that fulfills CTV, display, native, just a bit of video, a bit of code, a bit of text, and you automatically are creating for every kind of format. That would be exciting, I think, and could come in the near future. Another one is planning. So can you just put some inputs, a brief, and it actually give you a full media plan response? So those are two areas.
Mike has to travel back.
I'm actually quite happy talking about near term because the long term makes me think about like the existential crisis that is AI becoming cleverer than humans, which just makes me want to crawl into bed and go to sleep. Also, when I think about like even just the last few weeks at our place, like we've announced a partnership with Lumen, Good Loop. We've announced improved frame by frame video image detection and audio detection. Like I just think near term, I'm comfortable with. I'm not claiming to be any sort of expert who can predict longer than that. I just think we're all going to be very, very busy and we're going to have a lot to do.
A good point. And I really appreciate your point around not just using innovation for the sake of innovation. I think there's a real sense of responsibility, not in only how we're applying AI, but also in where it's being suggested in its use cases. So that's a very sensible approach. I think we're nearing the end, but I just wanted to make sure that tied still probably to AI, but you can expand beyond that point. Is there, what are the areas that you're most excited to see develop in Programmatic? And if there's anything that you want to touch upon which we haven't been able to, now's the time.
In case I hadn't noticed, I quite like brand suitability. So I have children. So being able to use natural language processing to detect misinformation is really important to me from a parental point of view. Also being able to better detect video content and understanding via audio obscenities, stuff like that. I would just say from a really personal perspective, my 12-year-old has a obscene potty mouth like nobody else that I know. So ideally I'd like to solve that. If somebody could, that would be great.
That's a lot of pressure.
For me, it's just the continued evolution of programmatic and how we can kind of serve the end clients, the brands to be able to grow, how you can create it at a more efficient technological / human operational cost than we do today. And I think there are going to be more newer, interesting avenues to kind of tackle. For instance, how do we do that with a focus on more diverse publishers coming on board, and those kind of focus areas that are going to come in. And today, the systems that we have don't do a great job of kind of being able to solve those kind of problems. But then as we look at Quantcast and start looking at categorizing publishers and categorizing content and so on, I think we'll have the ability to optimize for a whole host of I would say secondary set of objectives that I think computers are really good at, and it's gonna solve a category of problems that will take humans a lot of effort. So I think just going down that path of making it more and more efficient is I think is going to be the interesting bits of things to work on next.
Great. I would end on the fact that, as was mentioned, diversity and inclusion, sustainability are very top of mind, and we're challenged quite a bit. Like, people ask us in what is arguably still the infancy of deployment of AI in programmatic buying, straight away, people want to make sure that this time we do it properly, that we don't create bias, that we don't have blind spots. And I think that's pretty nice. I mean, what Gemma was talking about before, I remember sitting through a presentation from an LGBT publisher a few years ago saying they struggled to get monetized because advertisers were blocking the keyword lesbian out of fear that it would be porn content. And if you have an AI that's able to read the page and understand the actual context and actually avoid blocking such important content from being monetized so that these publishers can exist, I think that's wonderful. And if we can bake into our ways of using AI straight away, good intentions and balancing performance and principle, I think should be pretty fine.
Yeah, I just agree.
Complete agreement.
Yeah, I already kind of jumped the gun really on what excites me the most. It's the generative piece, really.
Great, thanks, Desiree. Do we have any questions online? Okay, we can jump in. Maybe we can do them. I might do them all. Okay, first question. Which company is really leading AI development and who should we be watching?
Should be watching Copilot.
Yes, I thought that may be what you could say. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think just me being here answers the question. It's got to be Quantcast. I mean, you know.
Will anyone not see themselves? No.
I'm going to test my new line, which is really interesting question. I'd really appreciate your thoughts.
And anyone else? No.
Well, maybe because you touched on generative AI, I think we're seeing a lot of development, and that's very exciting. It's also important to be careful about, what data it's tapping into, making sure that as an industry, we're also very conscious about how we're using these tools, having intellectual property in mind. So leadership from a technology perspective is super important, but leadership also from a, almost moral perspective and how we use those tools is important, and why events like these are also super important.
Yeah. And the next question is has a commercial focus. Does AI automation help to reduce fees/rates, or will the smarter machine learning end up costing more? So do we see an improvement in fees and rates due to AI, or an increase because of the technological cost, I think? Go for it.
Okay, I feel like there's a lot to consider here. If we're talking about AI delivering like efficiency, it can work in that space, cost efficiency. It can look at, okay, how do I actually lower or deliver a lower bid but maintain quality? So that's an area very quite simply that it can deliver lower pricing and cost efficiency.
Did you have a point, Gemma? Yeah.
I would just support that in the fact that the very nature of mitigating waste and driving ad spend towards quality inventory, by that very nature, you're therefore driving efficiency, which therefore drives down your, ultimate rates. And then the whole supply path thing, obviously it all works to the same end game.
Yeah, definitely.
I think there are two aspects to fees or margins today. I think there is the commercial aspect, which I think depends on how structured the ecosystem is, and whether or not there are monopolies and what kind of controls they have. That's one problem, and I think it has various kind of different aspects to it. But then there is the cost of running AI, and that is exceptional. The carbon footprint of AI today is massive. Now, one of the things that I've been doing in my own organization is kind of set targets of how we can reduce our compute costs every year, as a target, as a forcing function for us to be reducing the carbon footprint, making the cost of doing all of this compute better and better over time, which I think will enable us to pass that back to the clients. So for instance, for the last 3 years, we've achieved roughly 30% decrease in prices every year for like-to-like level of performance. And I think we can keep that going, as we go along, at least for the next couple of years. Mm-hmm. So I think those kind of aspects will make, cost better. Yeah. But the commercial aspect of it, I think, depends on various other factors, which are going to be influenced by probably who has the best AI, the best models, and so on. But I think it's not going to be directly impacted by the cost of running the technology itself, which is the second thing.
Yeah.
I would say there's also a maturity journey to that. So I understand how AI, like with any automation play, can be seen as a way to reduce cost. Can I get the same thing for less money, or can I get more for the same amount of money? And that's definitely step one, and a way to unlock value for clients. That's what they're looking for. But the next step, and the exciting one, is also to make better performance, as in what is important to you, client? What are the things that AI can do that right now you can't do without it? And that has a different sort of commercial value than pure efficiency automation play.
Definitely. Brilliant. Thank you. Is there any questions from the room? Yes.
Yeah, I was just wondering, in terms of kind of AI.
Let me just pass you the mic.
So I think, yeah, just to your point in terms of kind of keeping content safe, I think it's like a really interesting area. I want to know what your thoughts are on kind of not, obviously we need to keep and make content safer, but there's also a risk of kind of over sterilizing content. And obviously we're currently in a kind of era where it's more difficult for kind of free journalism, for public, for publishers to produce good quality content. And a lot of the kind of direction for funds is from big advertising, which then directs what is deemed as good content, and therefore essentially knocks on the impact of like what you can say, can't say. Like, what's your view on kind of how we guard against that with AI and stopping that from taking over?
I would argue that the natural language processing piece is doing that, because ultimately when we talk about protecting quality journalism, we're talking about all that long tail, like if your ads are not in view, if they're fraudulent, like that's, ultimately that still stands regardless of whether you're Guardian or whether you're a Pink News, and like ensuring that we're not defunding your diverse, smaller publications, etc. I do take on board your point, and I had thought about it, which was something else now. I can't remember what it was. I'll have to come back to it. Give me a second, I'll think, because I had a proper answer. A better answer, sorry.
I think that is going to be a natural evolution. When we were doing the first set of brand safety tools at Quantcast a few years back, the programmatic means you have to respond to every bid request in about 40 milliseconds, 50 milliseconds. The amount of time that you have to do complex calculation is too limited. So you would do something simple as just doing keyword-based analysis. What we can do over the years has just improved. So for instance, you can now go, look at full text, and you can kind of do a lot of deep analysis. And then you can do interesting things with it. You can contextualize it. You can put boxes into it. I think you guys have been doing some interesting stuff there. Yeah. I've seen our product set integration with Iyer's grow a lot. So
exactly. And actually, my point was going to be, because we had this conversation about, to your point, about machines, but what you feed into the machines, you can't feed into it targeting, the human feeds into the machine, the targeting, the human feeds into the machine, your campaign goals, the human makes sure that you are actually targeting diverse, smaller publishers that are still credible, trusted, reputable, all those things that we all value. So I think as long as the tech's there to do the job that's needed, you then also need the humans to do all this clever stuff that actually they're more freed up to do, because then we've got automation to do all the optimizations in flight. It all, in my mind, it's all interlinked, but that's definitely where we need the humans involved, because we ultimately can only pass and avoid the content that's been fed into that machine ultimately.
Exactly. The humans are still in charge. So Group M, as the biggest, I think, media buyer on the planet, takes that very seriously. And technology like Copilot enables that strategy, right? Like a human is in charge, sets the strategy, and Copilot can enable that. We have some functionalities in place that allow you to protect an audience. For example, you can say, yes, I want to look for performance, but I also want to make sure that my message reaches at least a good portion of that audience. So at the end of the day, it's again technology at the service of human strategy and not fully taking over.
Yeah, I'll just make a quick comment. So it's about like the semantic analysis as well, right? So if someone mentions bomb, they could be saying this is the bomb and it's not mentioning anything about terrorism in there. So it's you leveraging AI to make sure that it is semantically categorized to be able to fund journalism.
I hope that helps. I think everyone's probably desperate to get to the rooftop now. So I just want to thank you all so much for sharing your thoughts on that hugely initiative area, and thank you all for joining us.